Welcome inside a summertime edition of the Scores Table. Brian Haenchen and Danny Riego here with you, hold down the ship. We were at the IBCA Girls Team Showcase over the weekend, so we're going to do some thoughts and analysis from that because we both saw a lot of games, a lot of different girls. We're going to have a couple of guests on today's show. We're going to have Myah Epps from Homestead. She's going into her junior season, and senior to be Lilly Bischoff from Center Grove as well. They're both going to be along with us. So we'll bring on Myah here in just a second once we see that she's ready to go. But Danny, just overall, just throw out a generic question while we get everything set up, and just your thoughts on. Nobody can hear me. Your thoughts on the tournament, what we saw this weekend.
You good, Hank? So
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Myah cannot hear me. Can you hear Danny? This is great. We're
this is the summer for you. Well, while Hank kind of works out the technical difficulties, I think this weekend for high school basketball was interesting for two reasons. The first reason was that we had college coaches in the building. And I think we're in the second year of the June scholastic period. So that was an interesting concept for these kids to have to play. I mean, of course, a lot of these kids play in the club circuits. And so April and May, they're accustomed to playing in front of a lot of kids. It'd take the top 100 earlier, for example, though. I mean, there's 100 kids there. There's, I don't know, 50 to 70 college coaches maybe in the building. And I think there's a lot of kids that were used to that, but I think the majority of the kids weren't really used to playing in front of those baselines. So I think that was an interesting thing. But when you look at the individual teams, when we got into the Charlie Hughes event the next day, Friday and Saturday, I think what we saw is that everybody's at a different place and everybody viewed June very differently. I mean, you had teams that have new identities because they graduated major pieces, new kids coming in. I think you had some schools, and we'll talk about all of this, but they were implementing new offense, new scheme, maybe the scheme for the first time. And then I think most interestingly, I think you had position battles. I think what a lot of these kids didn't realize, and it's not just the 28s that were coming in, but it was also, kids that maybe played behind other kids that now have to have a different role within their basketball team this year. And they were competing for starting jobs. They were competing for shots and minutes. They were competing for who was the first or second kid off of the bench. And, the backup point guard at whatever, an arbitrary school, the performance this weekend is going to go a long ways to who really kind of approaches the fall workouts in that position. So I think we learned a lot. And I made notes, and I think I had notes on I don't know, 25 basketball teams. It's crazy.
Yeah. You stopped vamping just as I was getting ready to send a text message. Myah, if you can, I guess she can't even hear me, but Lily, if you can hear Danny and I, send me a text here. Okay, cool. She can hear both of us. I'm going to message Myah. Danny, just vamp for a couple minutes. But this is where we need Courtney to give us some sage mental wisdom or stay able to, talk about being a coach again. I don't know.
Yeah. I think June was a nice introduction to a lot of different things. Last year we talked a lot about the 27s. It's now the 28s, and I think we're going to talk about the 28s in the same way that we talked about the 27s last year. And what was interesting for me is you got to see a lot of these 28s for the first time on a varsity basketball court. And for whatever, parents or AAU team or coach or fan wanted to tell you about their junior high experience leading up to varsity, it all changed. Yes. I mean, everybody really gave their first impression, if you will. We're getting ready to have Myah Epps on, for example. I mean, there's a kid on that basketball team that's a 2028 by the name of Delaney Knoll. And you'd heard the name before, I think, if you followed around girls basketball, but this kid figures to be a major piece on a major, highly relevant basketball team in Homestead, and they seem to use her. Her body didn't look like a 28, didn't look like a freshman. And that's just one example. And we'll get into the Shellhammers and the Zoe Woods and what's going on at Carmel with their 2028 position battles going on. But I think it was a really cool introduction to see these freshmen come in and compete in June with not only the opposite basketball team, but the kids on their own team for minutes, which I think was really cool too. So And we'll make sure that we ask Myah about it, but they have one of the better ones up at Homestead.
It was nice too, because I think we lucked out. A lot of the top players were playing. I know that was something you and I were talking about. Got to see a lot of the best players going, a lot of teams at full strength. That was definitely a highlight of Homestead HSE. But yeah, it was a fun weekend. It was more enjoyable than I was expecting it to be, if I'm being perfectly candid. While we wait for Myah's camera to get set up, do you want to bring in Lilly, and then we can talk to Lilly or no, there's Myah. Never mind, there's Myah. Hey, Myah.
Oh,
Myah, you're muted.
How are you?
Can you hear me now? I'm good.
Yeah, you're good to go. This is Myah Epps from Homestead. She had a nice little weekend, a busy weekend, and now what? You're traveling again?
Yeah, we're at Myrtle Beach right now, actually.
Oh, nice. So we'll, Danny, I'll let you lead on this one, and we'll hit the hole quickly and let this poor girl enjoy her vacation.
Myah, it should be noted that you're taking, 10 minutes of your time on your personal vacation to talk to us, so I appreciate it. But congratulations. Homestead, look, you guys, I think Royce maybe is the only kid that you graduate, right? So you return a majority of the scoring. In addition to yourself, you also return Ankenbrook, you also return Helsum. Mollering comes back. We talked about, Noel coming in at 28. Has the expectation, does it feel different? I mean, I know it's just June, but does the expectation and the culture around that team and that locker room feel different this year than maybe it did any other year?
I think so. I think jumping from last year to this year, having those freshmen come in and kind of like you said, talking about the locker room, having the freshmen come in, it's kind of like we're trying to make their experience a little different than our freshman experience, because, we had all the seniors when we were freshmen coming in. And, it was kind of like two separate groups, I guess. So you had like the seniors, and then there was like the freshmen, and there was just different groups. And so I think right now we're kind of trying to implement everybody in so that it's not like that, like groups, like cliques type of thing. But I think it's going really well. The expectations are definitely there from, the starting five and the players off the bench. We need that scoring from off the bench. And like you said, we're returning a lot of our scoring from last year, since we only graduated Emma. And yeah, so I think, the expectations are still there for sure. And I think, like you said, Delaney is going to come in and help a lot, because she's, playing above her age for sure. She, like you said, you were talking about her body. She doesn't have the body of a 2028. So, she's definitely going to come in and help. And yeah, I think it'll be good.
So, what? I talked to Coach Parker, and he said you guys are probably operating at about, I don't know, maybe 40 to not even 50% of what you guys were doing. But at the same time, you guys have a lot of continuity from last year. And so when I watched you maybe a half dozen times last year in full basketball games, and then watched you again on Saturday, just seemed like the starting point was a little bit different. I mean, do you feel like there's just a level of continuity with particularly you, Whitney, and Gabby, and Mollering also? I mean, playing just such chunk minutes. But has Rod started to really get into, different things schematically than what you guys are going to do, or is it a lot of the same stuff and you're really just kind of cleaning up the timing?
I think a lot of it's just like cleaning up the timing. I think I don't want to say he's stuck in his ways, but he's kind of stuck in his ways. So he loves what he does. He's been doing it for a really long time, and it's shown him a lot of success. So we're really just trying to clean up the timing, and he does make adjustments every once in a while, depending on his personnel of his team and stuff like that. So there's like a couple things that maybe he didn't, or he wasn't able to do with his past teams that he can do with us now, or maybe like vice versa. So it'll be little things like that, but mostly it's just cleaning up timing and figuring things out.
Talk about your relationship with Coach Parker. For one of the basketball games that you played this weekend, I kind of sat, a little bit on the end intentionally, because I have a lot of respect for what Coach Parker does. I think he's one of the better coaches, in girls basketball at any level in the Midwest. And so I just sometimes try to learn about it. You guys seem to have a really good relationship. That was the basketball game that you went down with the ankle. I think there was constant communication about how you felt, if you wanted to go back in, things like that. But that doesn't seem, you guys seem to be a little bit more advanced with your relationship than maybe other teams that I had seen. Can you talk about that relationship and what Coach Parker means to you and what that's all about?
I think all of the girls' relationships with Coach Parker are very, very close. He does a lot for us, and we spend a lot of time, with Coach Parker. We do a lot of team-oriented stuff and like camp and everything. And Coach Parker's a character. He's a great, great, great coach. He's a great person, and he's very easy to get along with. He's pretty funny too during practices and stuff. So I think the girls just feel really comfortable. This is our fourth year going on, like being around him, just since even since our middle school stuff, we were kind of around him a little bit. We just had a lot of like time around him and stuff. So I think that like the closeness of our relationship, it's kind of an advantage over a lot of people, just because, he knows us so well, we know him so well, and we're able to kind of, especially me, like I have to be that extension of him on the floor. So I think I know him well enough to where I can like look at a play and be like, okay, like I feel like this is what he might want to do in this situation, or this is like similar to what he might do in this situation. So that's definitely a good thing, an advantage over a lot of people. But yeah, like I said, he's just, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I have one more question. Hank's going to ask questions probably about the particular basketball game. And sorry if this looks a little choppy because there is a little bit of a delay. So sorry about that. But Myah, let's go to you now. Like you, in the last couple of months, through club basketball and through your performance at Homestead, you've started to become, maybe grab a bigger portion of the spotlight, particularly within that class, but also nationally and regionally. Your recruitment has taken off. You're getting different levels and things like that. We talked last year about how we feel like the biggest jump within high school is always after your sophomore year, before your junior year, which is that transition that you're getting ready to go to right now. What's different about your basketball game? I mean, what can you attribute this big jump to? Is it just a timing thing? Is it something that you feel like you've added, or where are you with your development? Because your trajectory is as steep as maybe it's ever been, Myah.
I think probably the biggest thing is like my body strength, speed, agility, stuff like that. And probably my confidence too. Just I think that freshman, sophomore year, you're kind of still trying to like fit in. And, if you're playing against older girls, maybe you're not as confident because you don't think you're going to be able to perform as well against them or whatever. But I think this jump right now, I think with this, like how I've been playing, who I've been playing against and stuff like that, it's definitely raised my confidence level. And just the work we've been putting in, with Bernard and with my dad and stuff like that, stuff in the gym, and it's like translating to the games. And so when you see that, it kind of helps you like know, like, okay, like what I'm doing is good, it's helping, and it's obviously it's successful. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, and just continuing to like work on like stuff that I need to work on and stuff has been a huge thing. Staying consistent has definitely been a huge thing. But like I said, confidence and like body and agility and stuff like that's probably the biggest jump that I've seen so far.
Myah, we talked about, Whitney Ankerbrook and Gabby Helsom and you obviously on the team, but who else from this weekend, from the 4 games that you guys played against LN, HSE, Chesterton, and Zionsville, who else was standing out to you, and who are you excited about seeing play over the weekend?
Everybody on our team contributed for sure. I think everyone plays a huge part in our team, whether that's defensively, offensively, whatever. Like Kendall, she's huge on rebounding. Offensive, defensive boards, she's great at that. She's a really good hustle player. So's Liv Fry. She's a huge hustle player. She runs the point a lot. Sometimes like when in certain plays, she runs the point. So she's smart. She has high IQ, stuff like that. Delaney Knoll, obviously, she's a 2028 coming in. She's playing way above where the rest of the girls in her grade are, I think. So she's a big help. She did a lot of good stuff this weekend. Carly, Carly's great. She's super athletic. She helps offensively, defensively. She, guards majority of the time. Me and her are the two that guard the team's best player or the other team's best player or players. So yeah, and I think just everyone, the bench energy, even players who aren't playing as much time on the court, they're helping off the court just by keeping that energy up and, continuing to talk and things like that.
We talked about the recruiting on Friday, so I won't burden us and go through those questions again. I'll refer people to the website. But for you, what does the rest of the summer look like? So it's just high school ball to the end of June, right? And then July it kicks back into AAU?
Yeah. So like you said, June is strictly high school. I have the Adidas All-American camp next week, so I'll miss a little bit of that high school period for that. But yeah, just finishing out June with that high school period, and then I don't think the first tournament, which is like Run for the Roses, I don't think it starts until July 10th. So we kind of have that first week of July off, which is kind of when we were talking about scheduling a few visits, just because everything's super busy, so we don't know when else we're going to be able to get those in. But yeah, and then AAU's like back to back to back, so we're going to be gone a lot in July at tournaments, stuff like that. We have Run for the Roses and we have Adidas, and hopefully get invited to the NCAA like team academy thing. We're hoping to get invited back to that like we did last year. So definitely a busy month, but it'll be good for sure.
So do you build in breaks like during this? Like, do you build in yourself some like time off where you can like pull away from basketball a little bit, or do you like the go?
I don't really have time for breaks. We try as much as we can to take a few days off, but I don't know. My dad, he's a tough guy. He doesn't like those breaks. So yeah, but we do our best to try to make sure that I'm not doing too much.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, that's all we got for you, Myah. Thank you so much for taking the time to jump on with us. Sorry again about the technical difficulties, but
Oh no, you're okay. Thank you for having me.
absolutely. Take care.
See ya.
Bye, Myah.
All right, that was Myah Epps of Homestead, and we'll jump right over to Lilly Bischoff, who I told we'd get on at 10:45, and it's now 10:55 as we're recording this, and I feel terrible about it. So we'll bring on Lilly Bischoff from Center Grove. Lilly, what's up?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm pretty good.
How's it going, Lily?
Good, I'm good.
Danny, I'll let you take lead off again. I mean, you did such a good job with Myah. I'll let you take command while I get my thoughts gathered.
Same question, really. I mean, you listened in. So Center Grove is very similar to Homestead, where Stuck and Parker have their systems, right? I mean, you have your PhD in Stuck system right now, though. So, but you graduated some pieces, you know, I mean, Rachel, you know, maybe most notably, Booker, obviously, you could argue was kind of the core to your basketball team. And now you have, you know, acquired, you know, not just a player, but I think one of the top 5 scorers in the state, and in Grayson Gilliard, and she's now, you know, in red and in your locker room. So what's been different about this June for you and the team and for Stuck than maybe just 365 days ago?
Yeah. So last June, obviously, we had all our seniors, and we had them from the year before, and we were just going in confident. This June is definitely different because we lost them, but bringing in Grayson, and it's been really, really awesome for us. We've all been really excited that she's here. She's definitely helped so far, and just trying to get on just like the incoming freshmen too. We also have a lot of new freshmen coming in, so just kind of adjusting to that. Losing the 3 starters have obviously been a little hard, but we've been doing good.
I'm curious, Lilly, with Grayson coming in, how much time have you guys gotten to have to actually play and practice with her, and how do you go about trying to get her situated and with everybody?
Yeah, so she still hasn't fully moved to Center Grove yet, so she's been having to like drive back and forth to Munster and Center Grove. But we just played our first games in the IBCA. So obviously she's still a little bit new to the offense and the defense, but we've been working really hard in practice and this whole June so far, and she just did really well this weekend, so I'm really proud of her for that.
Danny said you kind of have a PhD in Stuck system, but how difficult is a system is that to learn, and like what I guess makes it different?
Yeah.
Like, is there a lot of nuance and technicalities to it?
Yes, I remember when I was coming in as a freshman, I was just very overwhelmed with everything that we do here, but I mean, even like the incoming sophomores and the juniors, I mean, I feel like they're still like trying to they're used to it, but I mean, even me, I'm still trying to like learn everything, but yeah.
Is that your responsibility? I mean, has he put that on you, or is that something that, like, it's obviously a team thing, but
Yeah.
have you really kind of taken her under your wing?
I think all the seniors and the upperclassmen have definitely helped her. Obviously she asked the coach for help, and they all help. All of our coaches are very well with her, and everyone that like doesn't understand it. But yeah, I think the upperclassmen have definitely helped her a lot.
So you graduated some pieces, obviously. You have Audrey Renee, Tad, that Danny mentioned. So how do you go about filling in some of those spots? Let's start in the post with Rachel Works. I mean, she really came on, and that was a big presence
Yeah.
inside for you guys.
Yeah, so Emerson Vulcan, she's gonna be an incoming senior. I think she did really well at the IBCA this weekend, so she'll fill our number 5 spot this season. So
Yeah. And then how about Audrey and A and
hmm
Booker?
um Ava will be our 2 this year, so she'll kind of fill like Audrey's spot. She was a 3 last year. She had a really good season. The 4 spot, um I think it will be Mackenzie or Hannah. I think they like to rotate a lot. We still haven't really figured it out yet. We're just trying to fit who fits well together the most. So just keep on practicing and we'll figure that out.
Lily, it's not just my opinion. I think it's the opinion of a lot of people that follow Indiana girls basketball. But you're one of those kids that seems to make everybody on your team better. And I think you probably had, not to scratch the wound too early here, but I mean, you probably had the most notable ankle injury last year of anybody in that basketball game, and there was a noticeable difference when you left the floor. Is are you Has your role changed this year? Like, I mean, yeah, you had to get on a shots, and of course you have to get Grant shots this year. But do you think Stuck's going to ask you to score more this year?
Yeah, probably just a little bit more. I'm still gonna try and create for others. I feel like I'm kind of like a pass first player. I try and get my players open before me. But I think being more of a vocal leader this year is what he's going to ask me more. I think I was a pretty good leader last year, but just kind of being more vocal this year is probably going to be my biggest step to being more of a leader. So,
Have you guys set expectations? I mean, I know goal setting is going to happen probably later when it gets closer to the season, but your expectations were really high last year, and
yeah.
not being in that locker room, I just think that just kind of being around you and a lot of those girls. I know it ended before you guys wanted it to, from a goal perspective. Have you guys talked about where you want to be and what you want to be this year?
Obviously last year was a really special season for us. I think we're just hoping for the same this year, and it's obviously going to take a lot of hard work, but just trying to get far in the tournament is probably our biggest goal, and just getting a well along together. So like last season, it was really special. So
I'm always curious. Do you watch back? Have you watched back that semi-state final? 'Cause, I mean, you guys played LC tougher than I think anybody.
yeah, I have watched it one time, but it was definitely a tough watch. But yeah.
So do you watch it for like analysis purposes to like see what you did well? Or do you watch it because you're packed off and want like that extra little bit of fuel and like to feel the pain or whatever?
Um, it was like a few weeks after I watched it. I remember I was in school and I was in study hall and I was like, I'll just go watch it really quick. But yeah, I kind of wanted to watch it because I miss season and I miss playing with the seniors. So
What'd you take away from that game?
um, what do you mean?
Like, do you I guess do you take solace in the fact that you played him so tough? Like, are there little things that you wish you had back other than obviously getting hurt, like things like that?
I think we played really good defense on them. We obviously knew going in it was going to be a tough game, and obviously Lawrence Central was a really good team. And I think just our confidence going in, it was really high. And after beating Franklin, we were all obviously really excited. And yeah, we went in really confident, so I think that definitely helped us a lot. But
It had to be weird too, not playing like a true road game for the first time in like the entire
yeah,
tournament. Yeah.
yeah.
So looking back at this weekend, then you go 4-0, right? You beat
hmm
Fishers, Pendleton Heights, Westfield, Zionsville. Did you guys have
Yep.
everybody together?
Yes, we did have everyone together. Last game against Pendleton Heights, Grayson didn't play that much because she had a migraine. She got hurt against Fishers the first game on Saturday, so she didn't play that much against Pendleton Heights. But we mostly had everyone. Yes.
Speaking of Fishers, I'm curious. I got to look at them against Center Grove, and they seem to be playing a lot
Mhm.
faster than what I'd grown accustomed to
Yeah.
seeing with them. What did you take away from facing them for the first time this summer?
We played them last summer, I remember, but I remember I was hurt, so I couldn't play. But obviously, Fishers is a really good team, and they have a lot of good players. Um, I think we just played good defense, and we communicated well. And obviously, some girls that came in didn't know the offense and defense more than others. So I think just communicating that game really helped, and we shared the ball well. So
They only gave up 29 points. If that's not the most Center Grove thing ever in June.
yeah.
Lily, so what's ahead for you this summer? I asked, like, is it just like camps and stuff? How's the rest of your summer looking?
Yeah. So the rest of June we'll have just school basketball, but I leave for vacation next week, so I won't be here for a few practices. And then I'll get back beginning of July, and then I think our first tournament is July 11th, and we're in Ohio. And then we have two back-to-back tournaments there, and then after that we go to South Carolina towards the end of July, and then that's about it for July. So
I should ask too about the Junior All Stars experience. What did you think of that weekend that you got?
It was really special. I really enjoyed it. It was just really nice just meeting all the girls on the team, and I think we all got along really well, and we beat Kentucky by a lot, so that was definitely fun. It was a really cool experience. So
Well, Lily, thanks a lot. I mean, it's I think it's going to be something that is going to have a lot of interest in girls basketball this year. Is kind of Center Grove in that system and implementing Gilliard into it. But a lot of that had to do with you last year. So congratulations on a great year last year. I know you've had a good summer. Obviously, that's kind of my arena, if you will. So I know your team is really good. You've had a great summer. So have a good rest of July, and we'll see you in the fall.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lily. Take care.
Thank you for having me on here.
Lilly Bischoff of Center Grove. We're also joined by Myah Epps of Homestead. And Danny, now we can do this properly because there aren't any fires to put out. It's just you and me, just like old times. Nothing to get in the way. My God, man. It's like being in the heat of doing those live shows when something goes wrong. I don't think you're a part of some of those disasters, but man. Your mic's working, my sound's working. That's all good. So we're going to do a quick reset. This is the scores table. Brian Haenchen and Danny Riego here with you. We're talking about the IBCA Girls Team Showcase from over the weekend. Danny took in a ton of games. I got to see and talk to a bunch of people. Danny, let's talk with the big game, Homestead HSE. I highlighted some individuals who stood out to me, but I think just overarching, the first takeaway that I have is, that's the one game that I was like, oh, I want to talk about that game specifically. Like the other results don't really matter. And honestly, the result of that one doesn't really matter. It's just more like the atmosphere and the intensity of that thing where, like we were like slapping each other on the arms. Like, I can't believe that this is June 14th or whatever the date was and not, pick any date in February. I mean, that was incredible how intense that was.
Yeah, my first impression when I walked into the gym was I noticed that, and I don't know if it's something that Satterfield and Huppenthal did intentionally, but they weren't in their summer warm, like they were in their full season uniforms. I mean, most of the kids wear like the mesh reversibles and they're not wearing their real number. I mean, they were wearing their jerseys, and I think it sent the message right away that like this matters, and we're going to play hard. And I think the kids out there, I mean, if you look out there, man, I mean, there was Makaluski was out there, Stidham was out there, Holman was out there. I mean, it's Mollering was out there, Ankenbrook, Epps, Helsum. I mean, it's just D1 player after D1 player after D1 player, and I think what we saw is, in just the least shocking news, is those two teams are going to figure into the mix in who comes out of the North and well, I don't know, maybe plays Lawrence Central, but those two basketball teams, what a game. And I think there was good shot making. I will point out that, just kind of taking it over to the HSE side real quick, they look very different. Okay. And one might say, how do they look so different? Because it's the same. I mean, it's Holman, it's Stidham, it's Makaluski. It's the same team. It's literally the same team. You looked out there and it was like, it could have been last year with just who they were. But, for those that follow the game, I think you guys probably know this. Chris Huppenthal is back on Satterfield's staff now. And Chris Huppenthal was the head coach of the Hamilton Southeastern program when they won the state championship in 2019, led by Sidney Parrish. They've started to implement a lot of the offense that they used to run. I mean, it looked eerily similar to those summers leading up to it when Parrish and Irvin and Hamilton and those kids were there. So they are they're going to run some different stuff this year. Now, obviously, through watching that program, I've grown familiar with Huppenthal's system. It was very vanilla with what they did. So I think the conclusion that you can draw from HSE is that, if they can get, kind of the little wrinkles and the little counters and the timing down with Huppenthal's system, it's going to add to what Huppenthal did last year. And I think they're just going to be a tougher guard. It looked schematically very different than it did last year. And I thought it was really fun to watch, because here are these kids that are running a system literally that they hadn't run before. And you could see some of the frustrations that Huppenthal had, whether it was a decision that they would make, or the timing on a pass, or the timing on a cut, or the angle of a cut. So they have a lot to clean up, but they have really committed, I think, to running new stuff. And so you throw Scout out the window, and I think they're ready to go and be fresh this year. That was my take on HSE.
First time for me seeing KK Holman, obviously, since the end of last season. She looked a lot different, a lot better, and maybe just because kids getting older, but I mean, I just saw a level from her that I hadn't quite seen before, just in her ability. Like, your shooting's really improved. I know she talked about that, but during the game that kind of stood out. And it's the confidence that a kid her age, only going into her junior season, has running that offense. When there are a lot of new things being thrown in there are a lot of pieces that you have to work around with you. Was really impressive. And again, it was her versus Myah Epps for a lot of that, which is a lot of fun to see. Myah McAlusky was one that I was talking to you about, and we've talked about a little bit over the summer too. Is just, I mean, she's playing with physicality consistently. Like, we'd seen it in flashes, but now it's like Maya's like, it's like she's trying to prove something, is kind of the way that I view it. And maybe that's not necessarily it, but at least metaphorically, that's the way it looks when she plays. I mean, the way that she's hitting the ground for loose balls and fighting for rebounds inside and points in the paint, and like banging bodies, like showing off a level of physicality consistently that I haven't really seen from her in the games that I've seen. So that's really encouraging and impressive to watch. Kayla Stidham, again, just that kid's knack for hitting big shots. I mean, late in the game, I think I tweeted one of them out where she had a go-ahead three for HSEs. The teams are going back and forth, and it's teeter-totter. She had another big one later. That kid's knack and nose for just the big shots is huge. And something in a video clip that's posted somewhere, her and KK are going on a visit to Ball State as their recruitment continues picking up. And then Antoinette Green, I mean, she's really fun to watch, just the way that she defends with such tenacity. And I was talking to some parents beforehand too, just about how she's really kind of embraced and settled into that role where she does provide a little bit of pop off the, scoring wise, but really, I mean, it's just that defensive intensity that she has. I mean, you have somebody like that who can set the tone. I mean, that's invaluable, man. And that was really fun to watch, really impressive type of game from HSE. Obviously, it's early and all that stuff, but it was fun to see. And like you said, Danny, I mean, it felt different. Like, it looked like a different team than what we'd kind of seen in years past.
Yeah, McAlusky is, I can tell you, just because I know that she's going to try to focus on things other than scoring the basketball and shooting the basketball. And yeah, there's a lot of people that talk about the rebounding. She's starting to crash from the corners a little bit more, particularly the offensive side. She's in a stance. She's trying to guard her position. She is trying to play with a little bit more physicality. There's some looks within that offense where she catches the ball in pin down action and post action. So she's trying out some of the new post moves, and the comfort level is increasing with her having a defender on her back instead of in front of her. So those are a couple of things that she's adjusting. But there's one play that she made. Look, it's not everything, but it's also not nothing. It wasn't at Charlie Hughes this weekend. It was the past weekend when up at Finch Creek at Mojo, and they were in a basketball game. I can't remember who they're playing. Scottsburg, maybe. I think it might have been Scottsburg, but she drives the lane in a 5-out, which, by the way, was brand new. I mean, I don't remember a ton of Satterfield 5-out, kind of drive and kick basketball, and they're in this 5-out kind of scheme. Myah has the ball between the circles, drives with the left hand. The help comes off a strong side corner. Very simple read, very simple kick, and she kicks it to Brindley, and Brindley makes a 3. Now, this is not an incrimination of Myah. It just kind of shows where her mind is, I think, going into it. But she really celebrated Brindley making that shot. I remember her running over, like giving her a high five, yelling in her face. I mean, that's a leadership gene that has been in Myah, but Myah kind of picks and chooses the times to come out. That play right there shows that she knows that she's got to be a really good leader this year, and that kids are looking to her for that positive reinforcement. And I tell you, you look at a kid like Brindley, she's going to take and make that shot with more confidence and more consistency now because of the little simple action that Myah does running over. Again, a small thing, but it's not nothing. And I think I noticed that. I actually said something to her after the basketball game in noticing that. So, McAlusky is starting to do some things maybe that we didn't see last year. So she does look like she has a chip on her shoulder. But, kind of going back to Stidham and Holman, to apply the formula that we applied to Epps, which is the biggest jump is made from their sophomore year to their junior year. I do expect big jumps from these two kids. Holman, you mentioned confidence. That kid has to be flying high right now. She's one of, I don't know the exact number, but I think she's now ranked as one of the 45, 50 best players in the world. Look.
ESPN, yeah, just pausing on that quickly. Yeah, ESPN moved her in and listed her, singled her out specifically as one of their biggest risers kind of last year. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. No, but that's it. That kid, it's not that she just became that. It's because it's now that she's being recognized for that. And so I think moving into that top 50, she has to be flying high. And very similarly to Myah, she seemed to be talking a lot more too. And she seemed to, she seems a little bit more comfortable now and kind of playing with Myah. And it's crazy because they've played together for so long, but it does look different. And I do think that there's obviously a mutual respect because they're both great players, but Myah being a top 50, top 60 kid in her class nationally, and Holman being a top 50, 60 player in her class nationally. And if those two kids really get on the same page, they're going to be a problem. And then you mentioned Stidham. That was big time shot making, man. And if you look at it, they didn't really come out of scheme. It came out of player positioning more than anything. You're going to have to figure out, and it's the same old story that we told last year, and it's going to be a redundant story that we're going to tell this year, but how do you guard HSE, right? Do you clog the paint and make it the focal point of your defense to keep KK Holman and prevent her from getting 2 feet in the paint? And there were a lot of times where Myah would draw the double, or they would get early help and make a mistake on Holman, and they would put Stidham on the laces, and she made 2 really, really big shots. And for those that didn't see it, I think they were up 4 in the final seconds. They hit a half court shot, which made the final 62-61. It was a great basketball game, but they did that, I think, because Stidham hit 2 threes, I think maybe in the last 3 minutes of that game, both on catch and release, Hank, if I remember right.
Yeah, and then like you said, Homestead hit one at the buzzer, which made it look a little bit closer cosmetically. But yeah. So, but here's a team that has a ton of continuity. And they're trying to get Abby Orm involved, and obviously Kenley and Van Heusen and those kids are very familiar, and they star in their roles for HSC also. But again, the new 5 out and the new man continuity, I think they call it down. That Huppenthal has put in, it looks pretty good. Early anyways, and they're probably, this is an arbitrary number, I don't have any source to tell me this, but they probably only operating at about 15 to 25% maybe of what that offense truly is. And I say that based on personal experience of just seeing it over the years and what they can do, but a lot of those wrinkles aren't in yet, and they looked great. It is fascinating hearing how teams with so many pieces returning like HSE, just how they're addressing this summer. Like Silver Creek, I talked to them a little bit and how they're adjusting and plugging some things in. I have a video clip we can play from that game. And then Warsaw, a team that was kind of the buzz of the showcase during Friday's events, and then I got to see them Saturday, and they were impressive. Same kind of thing where they have everybody coming back, and for Warsaw, it's the added motivation of an early bow out of the tournament, where it's kind of like the anti-Homestead, where Homestead kind of arrived a year early. Warsaw was in a similar position to kind of make that racket, but they fell short in that, and just how that's motivated them coming into this season. So it's fascinating how teams handle that and the different wrinkles and stuff that you see from that. Yeah. I picked Homestead HSE to lead us off. Danielle, you pick the next group that we talk about.
Well, you mentioned Warsaw, so let's stay there. I got a ton of texts during the event about who's number 10, what's the deal with Warsaw, what do you know about them? And let's stay with 10. 10 is Jocelyn Bricker. Okay. Just so for everybody knows, that's going to be a name that you're going to hear throughout the season. When we're in season 2 of this podcast, you're going to hear it on the reg. This kid can go, and she's got some boogie to her. She's a shot maker. They trust her with the basketball. Warsaw's good. And Northridge is going to be up there. Valpo is going to be up there. Of course, South Bend, Washington is going to be up there, but Lake Central, obviously with their pedigree and their coaching prowess, I think they're going to figure into the mix. Penn, of course, but I think if you asked a lot of people that were educated on that side of the state, I think Warsaw's the team. And I think they showed it this weekend. Bricker was outstanding. And a lot of the scheme that they run is, they'll set Winchester, who within the Indiana Junior All-Star program really kind of introduced herself to the state. They put Bricker and Winchester in high ball screen, like a lot, and not to put Winchester in unfair comparisons here, but it's very similar to what they do with Jokic, like in the NBA, where they'll just kind of stand her in the middle. They'll try to create some mismatches. She dives after that ball screen occasionally, but she also spins it out. That's how she gets a lot of her threes, but they got a lot of switches that way. But that's a really tough guard. Just in a vacuum, a Winchester on Bricker ball screen is a very difficult thing to guard in the middle. Now, when you add Zartman and her ability to make shots and what she can do on the wing, that's even a tougher guard. The kid that I was impressed with, and I got to look up her name. I am so sorry here because I want to make sure I get it right. Neely, Alexis Neely. I can't be more than 5'7", 5'8". This kid really impressed me. She's obviously an undersized kid to play post per se. And maybe she doesn't play post. I mean, my sample size on Warsaw isn't as big, obviously, as it is with some of the Indianapolis teams, but she looked really, really effective. And she looked to really understand her role, but they spaced the floor really well. So, for example, if Winchester spins out that ball screen at the top, Bricker attacks, they stay home on Zartman, so there's nothing there, and they guard that ball screen. There's a little duck in their offense where they'll run for Neely, and they threw it in there a lot. Neely produced, she scored for them, but she also understood that when you get the ball in the paint, if Bricker wasn't able to do it on the bounce, they were able to do it off the pass into Neely, so she became a little bit of a playmaker. Warsaw's real. They are real, and I think they're going to be a fun watch this year. But allow Bricker and Winchester and Zartman and Neely to really kind of share this spotlight. But you're going to hear those names a lot, and you're going to familiarize yourself with them.
Zartman came out firing on Saturday morning against Lawrence North. It was very much one of those 9 a.m. starts where it felt, I think it was 9 a.m., 10 a.m., whatever. It felt like an early morning start. But once they got the Cobs off and got going, they were rolling. Lawrence North was it. They had Kaya Hurt back. She looked sharp. Once she got going, Jemiah Thomas for LN too. Big, strong, mobile. I mean, she's a big presence inside. She's moving around pretty well, better than what I'd seen last year, which is really exciting to see for LN. Then obviously Kiki Butler has really elevated her game. Hers is a name that just seems like it keeps popping up more and more and more, which is awesome to see on social media. Naja Winston, we've talked about a lot. And then just bouncing back to Warsaw. I mean, I think they probably lived and died a little bit too much with the 3 over stretches late in the game. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, when they're dialed in, we talked about all through last year, I mean, holy smokes. They're fun to watch. I'm a sucker for the 3 ball and those long shots and high-scoring teams like that. So, for me, even when they're not falling as consistently, it's just a fun brand of basketball to watch. And well-coached team when you have the Ball State commit Brooke Winchester leading the way and just such a strong, talented supporting cast. And then you add on top of that the lingering anger and hostility of coming up short last year. I think you got a team that's really gonna go nuts out of that northeast or northwest quadrant of the state.
Yeah, and not to jump around too much, but the game that I saw Warsaw the most was against LC, the defending state champion, definitively the best team in the state right now. They made Warsaw look like light work, and so now I'm going to go the other way. It looked very, I hate to say it, easy for them. I mean, in a stretch, I think I saw Jayla Lampley score 7 straight points. In that same stretch, I saw Lola get a steal and drive. She actually smoked to the layup, but that's fine. She's going to make that 99.999% of the time. But I saw Abdurraqib hit a 3 after Lola drove and kicked out. I saw Nia McKenzie get a leak out. I saw Mariah Kenter-Garrett again hit that baseline 18-footer that she seemingly never misses. They're going to be a load. And if Warsaw is as good as what everybody thinks and projects them to be, a nice summer June auxiliary gym 15-point win that they had, making it look really easy, really sets the tone again for what this season is going to be, which is going to be everybody shooting at Lawrence Central. And we'll see if anybody can get them. But Hank, did you get a chance to see Lawrence Central at all?
So I was watching from 2 courts over. So I was sitting along. I don't know how I didn't see you there, by the way. I was sitting along the wall uploading videos and stuff, and I was kind of trying to pay attention to Borden Marquette Catholic just because they're 2 smaller schools that I don't get to see as often.
Talk about that game. Yep.
Forever, yeah. And then court over, I was just kind of monitoring the LC Warsaw game, and it was teetering towards a blowout when I first got in, and then Warsaw went a little bit of run to get it back down to single digits. Then it swung the other way, but every time I looked up, it looked like Warsaw was making a little bit of push, a little bit of a run to get back within a couple possessions and keep it kind of close. That was kind of my overarching takeaway from watching that. But yeah, I mean, Lawrence Central, what else can you say? I mean, everybody's back. I have a video clip here with Layla Abdurraqib talking about how she's helping out some of the freshmen because obviously this is her first real summer and chance to be with the team at full health because she's been battling injuries for the past couple of years. So I'll roll this little 30-second clip here.
It's kind of my first group with like a bunch of freshmen. So like the class at the 28, I think 28 class, they're really big, like 25 class was. So just being able to take a lot of them. They're usually like split up. So like I'm just with point guards, Lola Jalen with the 2s, 3s, and Nas with the 4s, 5. So just being able to lead who I have with me. That's what I think about it as. As a whole, that's a lot for one person. So we split it up a lot. And I love my little 2 guards. We get to know each other a lot more, playing together more, taking my spot. So just being able to give them some knowledge that I have.
It's cool. I like that approach too. Like, can you imagine being trained up by Jayla and Lola, and then you have Layla Abdurraqib working with the guards, and Nia McKenzie in there too? I mean, just Mariah Kenter-Garrett probably coaching up the defense too. Like, just like all those different pieces, teaching some of the younger kids. Like, that's just going to breed success and keep it going for that program, which is wonderful for them.
I think it was cool that all the kids at Lawrence Central played. There was no reason for them to. Lola has, obviously she's going to represent Indiana on Team USA and in U17. She made that team now for the 2nd consecutive season. And so she'll bring back a 2nd gold medal wrapped around her neck. Jayla Lampley is on a higher trajectory as really anybody now in the state nationally with her recruitment, and Abdurraqib and McKenzie you had mentioned, but they were all on the floor. And I think what it did is it provided Lawrence Central's staff an opportunity to really try some things too. And without as much familiarity with that system as I do with others, they looked like they were running some continuity man stuff that maybe they hadn't run. And some of that might have been just trying some things out. Some of that might have been that they do want to put some things on film and try things out. But the one big takeaway that I have from Lawrence Central is in that game, Warsaw cut it to, I want to say 6. It might have been 7. It was 6. And Coach Lampley called a timeout, brought him over. They came out in, I don't know if they still call it Red H. They probably don't since we outed them for the name of it, quite honestly. Yeah, right, H for Hank. But they came out in that quarter court pressure that they have, or that half court pressure that they have, and just immediately going like a 6 or 7-0 run, and then the game was over. So they have a switch that they can turn on. That is, look, at the risk of redundancy, different. I mean, and I think we know that. But Abdurraqib, Lampley, McKenzie, and I mean, you talk about the developments of those freshmen. That's a long play thing for them. Because when those 4 kids particularly, and 5 when you count Garrett out there too, now they have an entire season under their belt. They can play around with some different things and some different schemes, and I think they're just going to be even tougher this year. I think the big thing for them is going to be to remain motivated because they know they can flip the switch whenever they want, like they did in the Warsaw game in June.
I'm curious. I'll be curious to see how big the gap is when the switch is flipped off, like before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, you can flip the switch, but if the other team's already ahead of you, or the other team's nipping at their tail, and they have all the momentum and everything, like that might not be enough to get you out of the hole that you've dug for yourself. So I'm curious to see how big of a gap is, because the teams in the South haven't gotten any worse. If anything, I think it's getting a little bit better. And the gap's maybe closing a little bit. We'll see what Center Grove has and how they replace some of those pieces. Gibson Southern, who I want to talk about here later, has improved a lot, and then just some of the other regular cats. Plainfield should be good again by the end of the year. Not to mention in their own sectional, Lawrence North. Can't forget about them as well. So that'll be interesting to see. Let's move to some teams that I didn't get into my roundup, but that you did have a chance to see, Danny, and one specifically is Greensburg. Somebody tweeted at me about them, and finally having a chance to get caught up and look at some of these scores. They put on a really good show this weekend, Greensburg did. Coming up from 3A, they played 4 games. They beat Noblesville on opening day, 55-48. Then they take down Plainfield, 55-49, a really good Plainfield team. Young but really good. Pike, a team that's on the rise, 55-53. And then Franklin Central to cap it off, 63-46. And as I was walking out, I glanced at the scoreboard, and I saw what it was, and I kind of just assumed that it was Franklin Central on the right end. Well, stupid old me. It was Greensburg that was pulling away. Leah West, I'm assuming, had a big weekend for them, but really impressive showing from the 3A regional champ or sectional champs.
Yeah, it starts with Leah West. It definitely doesn't end with Leah West, though. Leah West is going to be a major candidate to make the Indiana All-Star team. She's a really good basketball player. And look, she's one of those players, too, that's truly positionless, right? She's got post size, but she plays guard. I think she shot plus 35% from the 3-point line. She's a 3-level scorer. She passes the ball. She gets out in transition. She's one of those kids that can grab a defensive rebound and go. Leah West is a really good basketball player, and they have kind of that alpha on this team that they can go to. Miley Wilkinson is also another kid. I think she missed the top 100. I think maybe somebody told me maybe for some 4-H stuff, but she's one of the 100 best players in the state, underclassmen. And then they have Allie Powers and Claire Larison, too, in 26 and 27, the best kid within those school districts in those 2 respective classes, 26 and 27 coming up. And with those 4 kids, Powers, Larison, Wilkinson, and West, I don't know the exact number, but it's probably 90% of their scoring returns. So Greensburg, very similarly to Warsaw, maybe flying under the radar. Well, flying under our radar, maybe. But they're a team that's going to be pretty regularly talked about when we go into the season, if they can keep it all together. But very similarly to Homestead and HSE and Warsaw and Lawrence Central and all of the teams that impressed us, there's continuity there. I mean, they've played together, and they only graduated the one senior last year, so now they're able to start. If they're going to run a 1-lap race, they're starting at the halfway point, so they can really clean up timing and things like that. One of the reasons why I'm sure they looked really good this weekend and went 4-0 isn't just because they have great talent like Leah West, but it's been together. And so now the chemistry seems to be working, and what we have in an early sample in looking at Greensburg and evaluating them is they're going to be a really, really tough out.
And that 3A too, I mean, it gets a little bit, it's not easier, but it's different because Gibson Southern moves up to 4A, but you still have Chittard. Danville is going to be a contender again with everybody that they have coming back. Scottsburg, we should mention, Ellie Richardson. I don't think Scottsburg was in town this weekend, but they're going to be stacked again too. I mean, that 3A South, man, just looking at it now, it's going to be unbelievably fun.
It is.
Yeah. That's going to be phenomenal. And 2, I mean, I think, Franklin Central and Plainfield, at least, unless they're resting some players, I mean, they had everybody there. As I was looking at it, I thought I saw everybody from both teams there, at least in attendance. So it's not like Greensburg is beating up on the backups and let's get in some work on some different things. Obviously, teams tested some things. Plainfield was doing a lot. I noticed moving in and out Menser and Williams to see how they each, I think, responded to kind of being the alpha on the floor, because when they're together, everybody knows what you're going to get. Some of that maybe, but in terms of strength, I mean, everybody was there. So Greensburg's beating teams at their best. At least they should have been. So really impressive showing by them.
You mentioned Plainfield. I did see them for a little bit, and Menser she got a lot of sound, and we talked about Berkeley and the graduation of Benj, obviously. But Berkeley made a play that just showed her maturation and explosion both at the same time. Like there was a quarter court possession and dead ball change where Plainfield had it. They were running their continuity man, and Berkeley caught the ball 4 times on the possession. I mean, I counted 4 times. 3 of them were all on the left wing, and she ended up back there. The 4th time she caught it, she attacked. It was the same attack that she had and the opportunity to attack that she had earlier in the possession. But Berkeley just shows like this is what June is all about. You know, let's get our continuity, let's get our timing. And then when things break down and there's nothing, then she gets 2 feet in the paint. And I think that possession, she ended up getting a layup and a bucket. And I think that was in the Carmel game. She did that, but like that just jumped out at me because it was like, she could have caught the ball on the left wing in the first 8 seconds of that shot clock or that offensive possession. I'm still a little bit in club mode with the shot clock talk, but the
someday. Yeah,
I know, right? But she caught the ball on the wing and she's electric. I mean, she could have gotten 2 feet in the paint on that first 8 seconds if she wanted to, but she didn't. She tried to get a better shot. She tried to get a better look and then just ends up 25 seconds into the possession, ended up getting a layup anyways. So it just shows her maturation, but that kid's electric. And even with the graduation of Benj, I would expect, the jump that Williams and Menser and company will take. I think Plainfield is going to figure in.
They're quick, they're aggressive. Williams specifically, like watching her guard Gabby Spink through most like the second quarter is when I really noticed her just like following her around, tracking her relentlessly, and then Spink going the other way too is really fun to watch. But yeah, I like it. I like what they're doing without Benj. They don't have the post. They're not going to have, I think, a true post player this year. So it's just kind of a team effort on the boards and just try to pressure teams and heat them up into the point where they make mistakes and are turning the ball over to Plainfield on the defensive end. And that's fun. And then, like I mentioned, I mean, just that Menser-Williams connection is great. Like they had some really slick passes, cross court. One that stands out to me is I think they went arc to arc, side of the floor, Menser to Williams, and she cans a 3. It might have been the other way around, whatever. But just some of those plays offensively, like that chemistry, like you can't duplicate that. And I remember talking to Peyton about that last year before the season and just the connection that the 3 of them had. And now you see it with the 2 of them. And it's fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch that develop. Plainfield's definitely one of those teams that I think maybe there'll be some rough patches at the beginning of the year just with the schedule that they play. But then come like county tournament time, like they'll probably be firing at all cylinders. And, gosh, it's going to be fun to watch. And I think Williams will probably be in that junior all-star discussion, by year's end. Yeah. So it'll be fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see. On the other side of things, Gibson Southern, kind of the same thing where they're going to have some piece to replace. Obviously, Chloe Graham's a big loss, but Gabby Spink coming back is huge. Paige Schnaus, who really came on strong in the second half of last year and into the state tournament, kind of was one of the more splashy, dazzling names in the entire state. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Spink and Schnaus to kind of carry things early on. But I think that this summer you're kind of seeing some of those pieces and you're going to start seeing those things come together. Like communication-wise was the big thing on the defensive end where I remember Kyle Brasher kind of yelling at the girls like, hey, you need to talk. And just to watch that on its own kind of take hold. And as the game progressed quickly, just how much more talking there was and how much better of a job they're doing against Menser and Williams and trying to hold them down with one of the younger girls guarding Menser and Spink kind of talking her up and encouraging her and how she handled that was impressive to see. And then Spink, obviously. So it'll be a good team that can score with anybody in 4A Gibson Southern. But defensively will be, I think, where we see the big jumps as the year goes on.
Yeah. We to stay on the south side in an Indianapolis school that goes south in a different class. You mentioned Lawrence North earlier. We kind of breezed over them. Let's go back and kind of touch on them real quick. Kaya Hurt didn't play on Friday and did play on Saturday. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think that's an important distinction to make. Lawrence North didn't have the best Friday, but then on Saturday, either you reinserted Kaya Hurt into the system and into the starting lineup and getting the minutes and a lot of the decision-making obviously went through Hurt when she came back, and they looked like a completely different basketball team 24 hours later after one sleep. Kaya Hurt's the real deal, man. Yep. She is talking to Steven about it too. You graduated a lot, of course, with, Mills and company, but my goodness, it is this addition by subtraction for them? Do they have more defined roles now? Kiki Butler is a kid on that basketball team that's had maybe as good of a summer as anybody in the Indianapolis area on the circuit, but she's really caught a new gear. I think she might be, I think, easily one of the 10 best 2026s in Indiana. And I don't know that's, I mean, if you listed, maybe the Holmans and the Lampleys and, Barnes and Epps and everybody, I mean, she's in that next box. But I would argue that she's kind of at the top of that next box and really kind of flirting with getting into the bottom level of that first box. But Hurt and Kiki, I don't know if you're going to find as good of a backcourt. Like those kids they're athletic, they're explosive, they have some continuity now. And then the one thing that's unique that you always like to talk about, Hank, is, Jemiah Thomas and Teague and Winston and the physicality and the size that they have. If they can figure out, how to play with each other and learn how to close games, which they didn't last year, learn how to close basketball games, they're going to be right there again in just the most Lawrence Central or Lawrence North way ever. They're going to be right there again. But Jemiah Thomas, to me, yeah, you saw Hurt's effect, but Jemiah Thomas to me is a kid whose game translates so well at the high school level. Okay. It remains to be seen whether she can do that at the collegiate level. And that's not my decision or my evaluation to make, but at the high school level, she's a bully, man. And she just committed to Northern Kentucky. So she's done. Her recruitment is done. They've got money. They've got money now to go to college and play basketball. And she just looked like she was just playing without any fear and just really loose. And that was really good to see. So Lawrence North, again, I mean, they're going to be one of the teams that figures into the mix. And we all know that if they're going to get out of sectional, they're going to have to beat the defending state champs and one of the best teams that we've seen in recent history here in Indiana. And if they don't, it will be a disappointment. I think the expectations are that high.
Yeah, I think it's fair too. Like they've earned it. It's not just not being falsely ascribed by any means. They're earned. Another team out of the South that's moving down to 3A, Silver Creek. First time for me seeing Brooklyn Wren. She's really, really impressive. Like just such versatility with that kid. Like she can do everything. Emma Shane got fouled late on a 3-pointer, hit 3 free throws, just icy. She had some big threes too. She's fun to watch. They're a unique pairing to watch in a good way. And on the other side, Fishers in that game kind of got a taste of what they're looking to do this year where they're playing a little bit faster. They're playing with some more tempo. And I can't remember if I think I might have texted you this or I might have tweeted one of the two things, but that was maybe the smoothest that I've seen Fisher's offense run maybe ever, where it's just like everything was clicking, everything was going, everything was working. And it was fun to see. And I wasn't really expecting that. I'll be honest, after graduating Talia, obviously Allison Choi, Talia Harris and Jordan Smith both graduated, but obviously Allison Choi is a really talented player. They have some freshmen coming in. But with so many new pieces to be plugged in, you're kind of curious, where's this team going to be at, a few weeks into their official offseason together. And for playing 2 or 3 games together up until that point, it looked really good. Obviously one game, obviously against a 3A team, but still, I mean, I've seen Fishers against teams before where they haven't looked that smooth. And it just, the passes were connecting, the shots were falling, and it was fun to watch and encouraging to see. So tying this up with a big, broad, stupid takeaway, they're going to win state this year.
Nice. Bookmark that. So just a real quick sentence or two on Silver Creek before we get into Fishers. Sure. Silver Creek was in a different. They approached June. Scott Shane had to approach it very differently. I mean, it was Shane and Wren again, a tremendous 1-2 punch in 2026. Wren's one of the best players in the class nationally at that age. And Shane is one of the best point guards in the state at that age. And so that 1-2 punch we know is going to be there, but who's everybody else? And that's when you graduate a kid, let's arbitrarily take Gant, for example, right? Gant was a major piece of that team last year. Okay. She guarded really good basketball players on the other team. She understood the identity of what they were trying to do offensively and defensively. She was a big system person. So Scott has a lot of kids that were competing for minutes on that team. And without talking to him, I'm sure that he drew more conclusion about his basketball team as really anybody else, because it was the first time that we got to see kids like Chesser, for example, play major varsity minutes. And those kids have to understand that they're in big position battles. So that's my take on Silver Creek. Fishers is interesting to me because I don't know who Fishers is. And does Fishers know who they are? And here's what I mean by that. Their identity of the team that went to the state championship was, I don't want to say undeniably, at least to me, they were identified by the Twins and their physicality and the way that they went about their business. I think last year they were a Talia-centric basketball team. Well, Haley and Olivia are gone, and Talia is moving on to play college basketball and after her Indiana All-Star campaign. Who are they now? They have one of the more impact 2028s in the state, and Riley Shellhammer, who seems to be inserted into the starting lineup as their starting one. They have Allison Choi. Are they a Nevaeh Dickman-centric basketball team? Who are they? And so I think what's interesting about Lauren's team this year and what Lauren's job is this year is to maybe uncover an identity that everybody buys into. And I don't think a lot of conclusion can be drawn from Fishers right now because some of their key pieces are such younger pieces, and those kids that are expected to be in major roles this year were, quite frankly, and I don't mean this in a bad way, role players last year on a Talia-centric basketball team. So I think the big thing is going to be, let's watch Dickman. Let's watch Dickman and Choi. Can they step into the Batman Robin role? Where does Shellhammer fit in? Who are they going to be? Are they going to run the 5-out dribble drive that they ran? Are they going to be more continuity based? Are they going to be more set based to just try to get looks for certain people? Who are they going to be? And as we watch the maturation of Shellhammer playing high level varsity basketball now, she's going to look different in June than she will when the season starts. And then by the time sectionals, I mean, we see this all the time with these high trajectory incoming freshmen. Who they are at the beginning of the year is very different than who they are at the end of the year. So Fishers, just a bunch of question marks for me. Just a bunch of question marks, but it'll be fun to watch.
Shoy said she's been playing at the one a little bit, splitting time. Obviously just when Shellhammer needs a break, but and Shoy's hitting some really impressive contorter body type of shots against Silver Creek there, finding her way through traffic, making some plays. And I remember seeing her she flashed quite a bit when I saw them and covered them last year too, but it feels like she's kind of on the precipice of a big season with just the way that she's developing, the way that she's expanding her skill set. And then you mentioned Nevaeh Dickman. Well, they have a 6'2" center, Natalie Thomas, along there with her.
That's
so they're going to have some size. They're going to have the double post inside that they can work with, and then a 5'10" wing too with Elena Anthony, a sophomore. So those three actually, Shoy, Thomas, and Anthony all combined for really a nifty little play, a smart basketball play that resulted in a couple buckets against Silver Creek. But I think we've talked about this over, just the way that Votaw is able to maximize the talent of her players and elevates them. I think her more than any other coach, it seems like that program, she just elevates them. Because when you watched those teams, it's like they didn't always have those big posts or those super, super athletic looking kids, but she just found a way to elevate them and to get them to the state final. And to get them on the precipice of another big run this year. And just, little things like that she's able to do as a coach is just so impressive. So when you mix that with the personnel that they have coming back, I think that it's a high ceiling for Fishers. But I'm with you. I'm interested to see what the identity is officially, because it could go a variety of different ways, depending on how things line up, shake out with everything going into the season.
Yeah, while we're in that sectional too, we should probably mention Carmel. Carmel was a team that we had mentioned at the end of the season last year that we thought was going to be a relevant piece in that sectional this year. And largely it's because they're going to return 5 starting seniors once they're all healthy. They only played with 2 of them, I think, this weekend. I think Lauren Perry and Izzy Shepard, I think, might have been the only 2 25s to play. I know Mackenzie Wood, who maybe is the feature piece in their backcourt, who is really good, and she really had her breakout in the Noblesville game last year at home when they knocked them off, the eventual sectional champ and regional champ. Knocked them off, and Mackenzie was really, really good in that basketball game. But interestingly, with Carmel is when you have the 5 seniors, now you're trying to create depth. They have 3 28s that played the majority of their minutes this weekend at the Charlie Hughes event. Catherine Bassey in 28, Bella Ramsey in 28, and Maddie Wallace in 28. those three kids all do certain things really, really well. And I think those three kids, maybe without knowing it, and maybe they did know this, but maybe that was the real one big takeaway from that coaching staff is who is going to emerge as the quote unquote sixth man or the big varsity contributor, because all of them have the game to do it. And we can sit here and say, well, I think this kid's going to be better in 4 years, or this kid's going to be better. What's the answer of who's going to help you now? And I think those three kids had an opportunity to do it. But, Carmel, who hasn't really been a competitor in recent years, I think does have the ability to do it this year, is particularly if they're healthy and playing all together with their 5 seniors, but they're not going to be able to do it without a little bit of depth. And I think that depth is going to be determined with who wins those position battles, one in June, but also early in the fall and early in those early in the basketball season, I think. And let's watch Carmel and who really wins that position battle at 28. I think is an interesting thing.
That'll be a good one. There's one team that I want to ask you about quickly, though. I saw Columbia City on your list, which reminded me of Addie Baxter. She really shined on that junior-senior game. Like she was excellent. And was the only game that I got to see the entire series this year, but that was a really fun junior-senior all-star game, and probably something we can talk about probably closer to the season. But I just want to shout out that game, and Addie in particular, because she had a good game. North Central, you had that one on your list of teams you had a chance to see this weekend. That interests me because I know they graduated some pieces, but it seems like no matter what the situation, they're always there. And at the very least, at least since I've moved here, if they're not among the contenders for a deep postseason run, they're causing a ruckus and putting a scare into teams that you do think are going to run deep. And that's just the quality, I think, of Ramey and the piece that she has there. What did you see from North Central?
Not a lot. I mean, they beat Columbia City, okay, in a basketball game where, quite frankly, they made plays when they had to. When Baxter was on the floor, Columbia City was really good, okay? When Baxter was off the floor, Columbia City struggled. That's not new information, okay? Everybody knows that, okay? But when Baxter went off the floor, I think North Central immediately went on an 8-0 run. I think they traded threes. They made that basketball game 31-31. Baxter goes to the bench for whatever reason. I mean, wanted to see other kids or whatever. I doubt she was tired. That kid doesn't tire. And then she comes back and they have an 8-point deficit and she fights all the way back. So, but when Baxter's on the floor and erases an 8-point deficit and seemingly has the game, has her grasp on the game, North Central has to make plays. And for the first time in a long time, they did. And so, look, Burris, Harrington, Lloyd, they got good size. They have good athletes. I think putting it all together and injecting them into Ramey and Walker's scheme over there at North Central, I think is going to be the key. But this was the first time where I saw these kids, not the first time, but the first time I'm going to talk about it really is make plays in a tight basketball game that they have to make to win a basketball game. And that's just something that just hasn't happened in years past. And so I think North Central will be one to watch. You'll familiarize yourself with their names a little bit more, I think, as the season goes. But, I love what CJ Walker does over there. He's actually, I think, maybe married to one of Kim's daughters, I think. And so there's a familial connection over there. But they really, toward the end of that game, made winning plays on the offensive and defensive side of things, and made it really hard on Baxter, because as you were sitting there watching that game, it just looked like Baxter was going to win it. I don't think anybody would have said, "Oh, let's see if Baxter can do it." It was just like, okay, Baxter's going to do it. Let's watch her do it, and she couldn't get it done. Which also shows us too, like Columbia City, even though they returned Baxter, I mean, they're trying to figure out who they are too. Just a quick sentence about them, but did anybody graduate more than Columbia City? I mean, my goodness. But baby Tonkel, I think it's Anissa Tonkel, the littler one, the younger one. She's good, man. She's good. She's good. And to see her play in a feature role on a basketball team, that kid, all due respect to her older sister, Tessa, I think Anissa's going to be better. Like she was really, really good. They've got a kid named Laney. The last name is escaping me. I think it's one of Addie's best friends, but she did some things that were really good too. But Columbia City is going to come down to one thing for me, and that's going to be the definition of where the line is for Addie creating for her teammates and creating for herself. And I think that line has moved. It was in a different place last year than it was this year. How far does she need to go? I mean, look, here's a kid, Addie Baxter, for example, and this is an arbitrary number. I don't have the stats on Max Preps to check this, but somebody told me this. I think she shot 35 threes last year. That's like 1.13 point attempt a game, and she made 17 of them. Like, she shoots damn near 50% from three and only shot 1.1 threes per game. So Addie has to understand now that her role is different, and she does. But to her credit, she approaches. I mean, she was making the right play. I mean, if help came off of the post, she would throw that little one-handed off the bounce pass to the opposite block. If help came off of the wing, she would hit that wing, and the shots didn't obviously go down with the frequency when you don't have older Tonkel and Sheets and everybody out there. But Columbia City was a fun watch.
Yeah. One player to shout out before we get to another couple games and land the plane. Ada Hupfer from Pendleton Heights. I only saw little snippets of it, but I'm going to draw a big sweeping conclusion because that's what we do here. No, but I mean, her mobility, 6'3" kid, the way that she was moving around was pretty impressive. She was making some good passes there with Casey Warfel. So that's just something to watch, I guess, going into next season is just the way that Hupfer moves. She's starting to pick up some D1 interest. My alma mater, St. Louis Shoes, offered her recently. So she's a kid whose stock's definitely on the rise. And I would really love, if Josh Dave was listening, and we know he is, I would love to see a Brownsburg Pendleton Heights game this year, just to see Hupfer versus Gordon in a meaningful game. Maybe we'll see it at like Sneakers for Santa or something. I don't know. That'd be fun.
Hupfer is Gordon in waiting. There's a lot of people, if you asked a lot of people that know the game and follow it, when Gordon graduates, people think that's post one in Indiana. Ada Hupfer. She's got good size. She, like you mentioned, she has good mobility. She's adding a 3-point shot to her. She can finish with both hands. She plays high level club basketball, so the competition is there, and the track is correct to really land on her trajectory. But yeah, Ada Hupfer's tough, and she's going to keep getting better.
One other game, the small schools, we want to talk about Marquette Catholic, the returning Class A runner-up versus Borden, a perennial contender who always ran into Lanesville, but I think now is probably going to shift into kind of that one of the favorites out of the South. I think on Twitter that Borden was maybe a little short-handed, but they beat Marquette Catholic in a close game. Do you have a chance to see that one, and what did you take away from those two teams?
Marquette Catholic and Borden could be the state championship game in Class A. Okay. Those two teams are really good, and it's because who they return. Lanaya Davis and Marissa Pleasant. Yep. I think. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, that again, they return their two leading scorers. Yeah. Katie returns the state championship run experience that they have. So, and Katie looked calm as ever. I mean, if you follow her on social media, I think she's been traveling the world lately. I mean, I'm sure that they were just operating at 15-20% of what their total capacity is going to be. She looked very calm over there, where she can get, a bit animated in a very good way sometimes, but she coached it like a summer basketball game, and they were right there in the Borden game in the end. Borden ended up winning. But this is the time where Borden needs to take the step. I mean, when you have two Division I talents like Wheeler and Rarick in Class A, and I'm saying definitive, I mean, both of them have multiple Division I offers right now in Rarick and Wheeler, and you play them at Class A, the expectations have to be super high. Rarick is an interesting kid to me. Wheeler is explosive. Let me step back. Both these kids can guard. Both these kids are athletic. Rarick, I think, just finished maybe 7th in the IHSA track state championships for high jump. And I think they of the six kids that jumped higher than Riley Rarick, I think 4 of them graduate, and 2 of them don't have PRs more than an inch higher than Rarick. Rarick might be a state champ in track. And so they have athleticism and they have size, particularly with those 2 kids. But if that one came down to free throws at the end and late execution. But, look, Lanaya might be, and I'm going to pause here because I don't really know. We're in the off season, so I don't know, but there might not be a better player in Class A than Lanaya Davis. That kid is unbelievable. She's a motor. She can get 2 feet in the paint whenever she wants. That pull-up is deadly. She does have to get more proficient from making the three in order to be, kind of a high trajectory Division I talent, particularly at that position. But she's got a motor. She plays both ways. She can guard the ball. But that one was interesting, and I think I actually said it to the people that were standing on the baseline that I was watching it with is Lawrence Central and Warsaw were on one court. I was kind of standing right in between them, and everybody was watching LC and Warsaw, and as they should, right? I mean, there's the familiarity. Warsaw was kind of the talk of Hamilton Southeastern in the event. But I kind of pointed over here, and I was like, this might be, we might see this game at Gainbridge
But I was thinking the entire way too.
in February. And so I really couldn't keep my eyes off the Marquette Borden game, to be honest with you. I was kind of watching both at the same time.
It's so crazy we didn't see each other. I must have been sitting there. Whatever. That's neither here nor there. Yeah, I mean, to your point, though, this is kind of the year for Borden, right? Because you got Lanesville out there in 2A.
That's right.
And with how things have been talking to Hadley Crozier, they're going to be a force in 2A. But it feels like things are opened up. In Class A's, there's some talented teams there, but it feels like this is the time for Borden, like that window's open for them officially. We should probably shout out former co-host, friend of the show, Josh Sable, made his coaching debut with Brownsburg. You had a chance to see them. They played Friday. What'd you take away? It was Avery Gordon versus Lilly Barnes of Valparaiso, who's back and healthy.
Well, Barnes was on minute restriction. I think she ended up playing more than what the coach wanted her to play. I don't know if Barnes was doing her own subs in that game, but she's going to be fine. It was great to see her back. I hate that she got hurt, but I think she's going to play. I think she's returning and going to play, AAU ball, I think in July. But, she looked great, and just understanding that's the first time that her shoes have touched the floor competitively in a very long time. To get to Brownsburg, Josh is going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it through the year. They need a step up at point guard. They need somebody to handle the basketball, get into the offense. They need that. And so what I saw when I watched Josh's team for the first time is I saw two things. I saw a lot of creativity in getting high-low opportunities and getting strong block touches for Gordon in different ways. There was a lot of sets that he had put in. A lot of them were not read and react. They were all scripted, but got Gordon her touches where she could do some damage. And that sounds like a simple thing, but if that's your identity and that's who you are, then you have to master that before you worry about anything on the periphery. And they look like they're off to a really good start. Sideline out of bounds. I saw two different sets that got her a high-low look and just sideline out of bounds action. I saw a dead ball set where I think he called it like Husky, which was another high ball, or another ball reversal high-low action for Gordon. So there was a lot there. I love McCullough, though, man. Elle McCullough is going to have a breakout season. I talked a lot about her last year. I'm going to talk a lot about her this year. I think Josh is going to have to play her a little bit at the point. I know he doesn't want to because she's probably the best perimeter shooter that he has in purple. But I think his concern is going to be, if Elle brings it up and gets rid of the basketball, can she get it back? And so he's playing around with some different things, but they undressed Valpo. I mean, they did. I think they beat him by 30, 59-29, I think. I mean, they undressed him. And Gordon didn't even really hardly play in the fourth quarter of that game. So they looked really good. And the new Josh Sable era is off to a really good start, playing with an abbreviated roster, getting to 59 points, getting all of those touches, and just kind of playing around with some different options. So there's the update on Brownsburg.
Brownsburg also beat Northridge 67-60. Northridge they graduated quite a bit, but you never know. One to keep an eye on. They gave Valpo a run for their money last year at the regional championship. Anybody else you want to talk about before we get out of here? This is probably our last show for a few weeks.
Yeah, let me just kind of look through Cathedral. Cathedral returned Jada Wilson, but they have 2 freshmen among others, but Caroline Wiggins and Maddie Watko, who inserted into the starting lineup. So the rebuild at Cathedral that Lisa Finn is in right now that's off to a good start. They had a nice come from behind victory against. Oh my gosh, I can't remember who they were playing, but they were down 6. I went off to the other gym and then came back, and they ended up winning that game. So those kids like Wiggins and Waco, Norwell, that's what it was. And by the way, like they got Vanessa Rossworm now with the graduation of their backcourt that they had. Vanessa Rossworm now is in the Meredith Tipner, Addie Baxter, Molly Ernst, this kind of box of this is the new team that's built around me, right? So when you graduate like Reagan Wilson, for example, Tipner is obviously going to be centric there. Your graduation of Woodard, it's now a Molly Ernst's centric basketball team. This is now Vanessa Rossworm's basketball team, and she was very effective last year at the point of all of Eric Dorton's odd front zones. But she's going to have to score this year. She's going to have to do more, and I think she's capable of doing it. So that'll be fun because Eric is going to get that right by the end of the year. I watched Washington play. Katie Reed looked like she was playing with little children at recess. She was just killing people, but that kid's going to have a big year down at Washington. We talked about Brownsburg, Valpo, Fishers. Noblesville's interesting, right? I mean, Noblesville with Tipner. Tipner is now one of the 100 best players in the world in the class, and she has now inserted herself into some national notoriety, and her recruitment is really starting to pull into the 18th green now too. So, but maybe coming off of a Miss Soccer, coming off of a commitment to a Division I basketball program, and what she did in the All-Star series. Let's watch Meredith Tipner. I think the big question looming at Noblesville is if Tipner can't replace the 17 points per game by herself. So she's in that fine line. Can she make everybody in her team better? The one kid, Hutchinson and Quigley are probably the 2 kids where she's going to have to really get increased production from them. Can Hutchinson give them what Ava Shoemaker gave them last year? If so, Quigley takes a step forward. Maybe they figure more into the mix than what we maybe originally thought. Silver Creek, South Bend, Washington is still loaded. I mean, look, Kira Reynolds, Monique Mitchell, Raya Wilson, and Lowe. I mean, those kids, they didn't have the greatest weekend on the scoreboard, but it's June, so who cares? Right. And then Jennings County. I have a note on Jennings County. I mean, this was the first time that we've seen Christy Sigler coach a basketball team at Jennings County that didn't have Julianne Woodard in the last 4 years. So Molly Ernstis now, you're up. And I think the big thing with Molly, we all know she can shoot. We all know that she can score the ball. Can she guard? Can she rebound? Can she handle the ball? And can she make shots in crunch time and make the right decision? But her big responsibility in June was maybe different, very similarly to Baxter, very similarly to Tipner, but she's now responsible for making everybody on Jennings County better. Whereas you could use Woodard to say, hey, Woodard, create some stuff for me. But now that's Molly's responsibility. So let's watch that. But man, I shouldn't have this many. I don't know how many hours I spent.
I don't know how you did it all, man. I really don't.
But I don't look, dude. It's just June, and it was so fun. And now we're just gonna kill it for a while. Everyone go back to their club and so on and so forth. And I'll see them on the club circuit and things like that. But man, it was really refreshing, and I think it really shed light on a couple of things that what the storylines are maybe coming into the season. But I just couldn't keep my eyes off it. And I didn't see everybody that I really even wanted to see. It was tough getting over to even Mount Vernon. Like you just go to HSC and there's good games in every time block.
It was all very well run too. It was a great tournament.
Yeah, like Mount Vernon, for example, right? Mount Vernon graduated an Indiana All-Star, going to DePaul, right? DePaul and Ellery Mensch. Okay. And now you add Zoe Wood, who's one of the high trajectory 28s. And she's gonna be a 4-year starter for Mount Vernon, and she's gonna be a household name. And you got to see her first real weekend in front of college coaches for her high school program play. And she's going to have a lot of expectation and a lot of pressure on her, as her high school career starts. But it was fun to see, Shellhammer, Knoll, Wood, Bassey, Wiggins. I mean, a lot of those, because we didn't see Janiah Cooper this weekend. I understand that Janiah Cooper, who's one of the 28s who figures to be a major impact varsity basketball player. I don't, it's not a super reliable source, but somebody told me that she hadn't selected a high school yet, and maybe that was why she wasn't playing. But there was a lot that we could unpack and talk about. But for me, it was fun to just see kids in different roles within their same cultures, and the kids that were in the same roles. It was nice to see the different starting point, like the HSEs and the Lawrence Centrals. It was nice to see the different, kind of starting point for where they were in June.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, that's all I got. That's all. I think that's all Danny's got. We've both emptied out the notebooks entirely. You could read my insider piece on IndyStar.com. There's also, I think, like 11 or 12 videos on there in a playlist, which I tweeted out. There's also a couple on the timeline as well. Maya Makaluski, Silver Creek as well, Brooklyn Wren, and Emma Shane. So I think that covers everything for me. I'm going to be talking with Hadley Crozier hopefully here soon. We're going to have at least have an update on her and her status. I mean, that girl's recovery, Danny, is just unbelievable. She's a freak of nature, which is just phenomenal to hear. Looking forward to that. I got to see rodeo, so the Shelby Allen feature's going well too from Lanesville. I loved covering the rodeo. It was so much fun just watching it and learning about it. So I'll be talking about that incessantly over the next few pods. But yeah, we'll probably do a check-in. I think late July, early August, it seems like, in talking to the kids, like the juniors, seniors with, some big time college offers, it seems to be the range when they're wanting to get it done. So I think we'll probably have to do them just to recap all these college commitments that are going to be flooding in, because a lot of kids are going to be popping off the board and just super well-deserved opportunities for everybody, really. Yeah. But we thank you all so much for watching. We thank Lilly Bischoff, Myah Epps for stopping by. Thank Danny for doing this with me as always. And we'll talk to you guys in a few weeks.
See you guys.